Proudly presented by Pence Homes and part of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast network. This is Lynx Happy Hour. Lynx fans, what is up and how the heck are you? My name's Terry Horstman, and I am so happy to be hanging out with you in this space today on the first ever episode of Lynx Happy Hour, a podcast that I dreamed up while you're never going to guess this, talking about the Lynx at happy hour with some friends. And my hope that this show is a great recreation of those kinds of vibes and for it to be a fun addition to all of the outstanding Lynx coverage that's already out there. I think we're really lucky in this market. All of my peers on the Lynx beat do an outstanding job, but there's always room for more. And I think I see this podcast just being a fun sort of a weekly reminder of everything that's going on, latest games, trades, moves, and especially vibes. There's not enough sports content, in my opinion, dedicated to the vibes that make the games fun. Why we're all in love with these games in the first place, and these teams and these leagues. Not everything has to be a super heated argument where we get mad and, slam social media shut and stomp away. So that's the mantra of the show. Happy hour where Lynx basketball is always on special. I want to first give a big thanks to my pal, Mitchell Hansen. If you are listening, you probably are familiar with Mitchell's work already. He's the host of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast and is now the head of the brand new Hitting the Hardwood podcast network. Mitchell actually joins me later in the show to talk about the 2025 WNBA drafts, and we go through a recent mock draft that he did with the other WNBA writers over at Winsidr. I floated this idea towards Mitchell earlier in the offseason after I guested on Hitting the Hardwood, and I just want to thank him for running with it and saying hell yeah. It's always fun when your enthusiasm is met with other enthusiasm and you get to collab on stuff and make things together. And I'm psyched to be doing this with Mitchell. And I think it will be a lot of fun and will give all of you fans just more meat to chew on and create more dope content for a team that deserves as much content that exists possible. I don't think you can talk about this team enough, especially even if they weren't winning and dominating the way that they have been over the years, because it's a great team to cover, great personalities, great basketball. What else can you say? So yeah, thanks to Mitchell. Keep following his work if you're not already, and subscribe to his podcast and give it 5 stars. I hope you give this one 5 stars already. If you're not convinced by the end of the episode, just do it. Just do it anyway. I also want to give a big thanks to our first presenting sponsor. That's right. Not even an episode in the books, and we're signing sponsorship deals. Really appreciate the support from Nate Pence and the entire team at Pence Homes, our honored first sponsors of Lynx Happy Hour. And I'm so grateful to be teamed up with them as well. The team at Pence Homes has experience working with first-time home buyers, folks selling their first home and buying their next place, to people looking to downsize. With the best tools, technology, and trusted vendors to help with any home project, Pence Homes is a top choice for buyers and sellers. For more info and to set up a time to meet with Nate and the team to talk about your home buying or selling needs, visit pencehomes.com. Pence is spelled Pentz. Nate's great. Probably, if you go to a lot of games, you've probably seen Nate at games. Really great Lynx fan, and really just appreciate the support that he's extended while this podcast is fully in its infancy. Always nice. Always nice to have that support right off the bat. Before we get into some great draft talkers with Mitchell, I want to take time to talk a bit about the offseason to this point. And then after Mitchell's segment, I'm going to wrap up with talking a little bit about the ownership news for the Lynx and the Timberwolves. Lots of reaction to that news, and most of it is from the Timberwolves perspective. So just going to talk about that from the Lynx perspective for a bit after Mitchell's segment. But as I talk right now, today is April 10th, and the WNBA draft mere days away. We made it, Lynx fans. W back. And if you are a Lynx fan, I think you've got to be pretty happy with how this offseason has gone. The Lynx didn't make a huge splash in the free agency period, but I'm not sure that was ever really on the table. I still love a lot of the things that they've done. I like the moves made around the margins. And of course, they've got a lot of people coming back, which is the most important part. But there wasn't anything huge to really eliminate the taste in your mouth from last October, which is probably still not great. And I can't blame you for that. If this podcast took the form of a brick and mortar bar, there'd be a sign on the wall that says, "I'm drinking until I forget game 5 of the 2024 WNBA finals." And then everyone has to hit the table and go, "Damn," like they do in How I Met Your Mother. So there has been a little bit of a turnover. The key losses in the coaching department, Katie Smith has gone back to her alma mater of Ohio State, which you almost certainly are aware of by now. Katie did a tremendous job with this team, specifically with Bridget Carlton and Kayla McBride. I wrote about that a couple times last year over for the nexthoops.com, who all my written work on the Lynx is staying with. And that's going to be some big shoes to fill. And who better to fill those shoes than Lindsay Whalen? Made the most get a Lynx legend to replace a Lynx legend. I think that's a pretty simple and effective strategy when putting a staff together. Claire Duelius, the GM, also departed to be the full-time GM for Unrivaled. And even if you weren't paying attention, you probably heard that Unrivaled was awesome. And Claire did a great job with that. So she'll be missed as well. But I do think the Lynx are in a pretty good spot in the executives department. Cheryl Reeve, reigning coach of the year, reigning executive of the year, is still in Minnesota. So not to diminish any departure, but I don't think Lynx fans have any need to be concerned. Eric Thibault comes from the Mystics to be an assistant coach as well. There's obviously a lot of fanfare at the press conference announcing the acquisitions of Thibault and Whalen to the coaching staff. On the player side of things, I think a lot of fans were maybe disappointed / surprised / both to see Chechi Zandalicini's name in the expansion draft. I think it's a pretty smart pickup if you're the Valkyries and you're trying to establish some stability in your expansion year. So losing Chechi obviously opens up some 3-point shooting, defense, and just veteran savvy that needs to be replaced. And also Maisha Hines-Allen signed with the Dallas Wings and got paid pretty handsomely to do so. I was a little bummed to see that news at first. I have to say, from the moment she got here last season, Maisha Hines-Allen was an absolute delight to cover. And then I saw the numbers with the deal, close to max dollars, and I was just like, hey, good for you, Mai. Get that bag. And Dallas is here for the home openers. So Maisha Hines-Allen will be at the next home and away Lynx games as the Lynx open their season down in Dallas. So happy for Maisha Hines-Allen, but she did provide a lot of toughness, grit, and just depth in the front court that this team will need to replace. And maybe that's replaced in the form of French player Marieme Badiane, who's playing with K-Mac right now over in Turkey with Fenerbahce, and also played well for the French national team in the Olympics that came within a whisper of stealing the gold off of the USA's next. So I'll be very interested to see what she looks like with this group in training camp, and if there's a path to significant playing time for her in her first season as a Lynx. But I did really, really like that move when it came about. I think the biggest return that wasn't guaranteed going into the offseason, of course, the Lynx had the whole starting lineup under contract. They had Dorka under contract, but they didn't have Natisha Heidemann under contract. And they eventually agreed to a 1-year deal that gave T, I think, about 15 grand raise over what she made last year, 15-20 or so. I don't have my Lynx her hoop stats page open right now, but I think she got a decent salary bump. And I think T coming back is huge. She was a great source of energy, pace, and just kind of everything. T really, really understands the game, and when you have her and Court, they kind of found a way to either like to stagger their off nights throughout most of the regular season, and I think it always kind of feels like you're diminishing a player when you say they're just they're great for team chemistry, because it often implies that they might be short on the talent side of things, which Natisha Heidemann is not short on talent when it comes to those discussions either. But I don't think you can overstate how important chemistry was for this group last year and how instantly it worked. Cheryl Reeve told us throughout training camp that this was one of the more impressive training camps that she had seen and been a part of. And the players echoed that, kind of every training camp and media day at the beginning of a season in any sport, the players will be like, yeah, we're building the chemistry. We're building the chemistry. You could see it right away. And it showed in the results. It didn't take the Lynx a month to figure each other out, even though they had a lot of players playing together for the first time, or for the first time in a while, at least all playing with Minnesota across their chest together for the first time. And there wasn't a period of growing pains. And by bringing T back, there isn't another team in the league that comes close to returning a higher percentage of key minutes on the floor from last year than the Lynx are. So when you head into training camp, every other team in the league will be trailing the Lynx in the playing together department. That doesn't necessarily mean that those teams won't find a way to quickly build chemistry and to figure each other out and to get the ball rolling right off the bat. But that's not easy to do. And this Lynx team made it look easy last year in the early going, and they're not going to miss a beat. And I also think here at the outset, there's still some European play to be finished, but I do expect all overseas commitments will be fulfilled by the time training camp opens on April 27th. So it looks like, I haven't been told this, I'm just guessing this, that the entire team will be present and healthy at the courts at Mayo Clinic Square on day one of training camp. This will be my third training camp covering the Lynx. So, I haven't been around too long, but each of the last 2 years, they didn't have everybody. Not at the start of training camp. Not even at the start of the season. They didn't get Dorka back until a few games into the season last year. I think a handful of years ago, so before I was on the beat, but I've heard the story a million times of how, K-Mac got off a plane, went straight to the stadium and drained like 6 threes. That's just, that's K-Mac doing K-Mac stuff, but it is more ideal to have everyone together uh, with some time to spare. And training camp opens April 27th. First preseason game is May 6th. They've got another one on May 10th. Those are both against the Sky. The first one's in Chicago. The second one's here in Minneapolis. It's not a small thing if they're all here for that entire time. And on top of all that, over this offseason, if none of that gets you that excited, I know moves and big signings are what we all love to see, and the things that make you jump to Blue Sky or social media and, just dive into the breaking news right away. But there is a long period of time where the most exciting basketball on the planet was taking place in Miami, Florida, and Nafisa Collier looked like the best player on the planet. That is a better sign for this season than any splashy free agent signing you can make. And she was playing with Court. Court looked great. K-Mac looked great and is playing great still in Turkey. BC's had a great season in Turkey. And Alana Smith had a great year in China. They're all playing great. And not that I think they need fuel to the fire, but they certainly have it with how things ended last October. So training camp's going to be great. We'll have a full training camp preview episode where we talk about some of the signings the Lynx, did make around the margins. Cameron Taylor is back. She had a fantastic preseason with the Lynx last year. Was one of the last two cuts before the season started. Cameron Taylor returns. I've always been a big Grace Berger fan. So we'll have some episodes where we get into the nitty gritty of the roster. Right now, the roster stands at 14 players, and they have 4 draft picks on Monday. Mitchell and I talk about what they might do with those draft picks, but the path to playing time for anyone in the 2025 draft class on the Minnesota Lynx is going to be pretty difficult. So I would maybe guess that there's one rookie on this roster when the season starts. So yeah, it makes things a little tough to follow over draft time. But as of now, all seems quiet on the trade front throughout the league. On the league-wide media call today, it was implied by multiple people that the phones in Dallas have not been ringing too much. I don't know if someone asked if it's better to answer the phone or to just leave it disconnected. So maybe Kurt Miller disconnected the phone in Dallas. Don't even talk to me about number 1. They have number 12 too. So that, there's still potential trade winds blowing, but all is quiet on that front right now. So let's get the segment with Mitchell started, and then there'll be one more segment after that here on Lynx Happy Hour. Thanks for tuning in. Mitchell Hansen, welcome to Happy Hour. You are the first customer.
Thank you. I'm honored to be the first one. I'm first of all, I'm happy that we're teaming together on coming under the Hitting the Hardwood network. I'm very happy to have you on board. I've obviously enjoyed working with you in the past with Hitting the Hardwood. And I'm stoked to see what you can do with Lynx Happy Hour and what we can do together as a team.
I'm stoked too. A little terrified. Giving me the keys to drive. It's so good on you for having faith. So it's only right that you're the first person to be here. And now in running your own network, we asked the question before this: how many podcasts do you need to call it a network? And we determined that 2 is enough.
Anything better? You can't have a network and then just have one podcast underneath it. You gotta have two. So it's it's something I never really thought of doing until we kind of had a conversation, even probably about a month or so ago. And no, I'm happy. I'm happy it worked out. And I don't take this the wrong way, but I'm happy that I persuaded you to not come on my podcast anymore and start your own. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, it was definitely that last episode. I was like, I'm sick of being on Mitchell's show. I'm going to start my own damn thing. But no, very, very happy for this to be a part of the Hitting the Hardwood umbrella and network of podcasts. Yeah. Once you have two, it's plural. So we're not lying.
Right, exactly. And if I could just not to turn it onto this or plug this, but if anybody out there is interested in partnering with us, not only just Hitting the Hardwood, not just Lynx Happy Hour, could be either one, could be both, could be the Hitting the Hardwood network. If you guys are interested, or you know somebody that's interested in partnering with us, you can check out the website, which is on all the Hitting the Hardwood social media channels in the bio. Go to the partners page. There's where you can find the sponsorship form. And if you're unsure, you can just reach out to us. You can chat with us, and we're pretty flexible on working something out. But in the end, we want to partner with people who want to do the same thing we want to do. We want to grow the game. We want to continue to talk about the game and cover the game, and obviously any support helps us be able to do so. So anything that anybody can do, or any partnership, sponsorship, whatever that may be, it would be greatly appreciated. But I didn't mean to turn it to a business talk, but
that's all right. No, shameless plug. That's how empires of networks are built. So watch out, Bill Simmons, because that's Mitchell in your rearview mirror.
Yeah.
He's not nearly as nice as he looks. So watch out, buddy.
If I can one day make enough money to have this be my full-time job, that would be the dream.
That would be the dream. That would be the dream.
I can admit to everybody that breaking news, I do not make enough money to quit my full-time job. So
but someday, maybe by the end of this season.
That's true.
It's starting soon. Talking about the game you mentioned, and that's what we're going to do here. And there's a lot to talk about. There was a national championship on Sunday. Congratulations to Minnesota's own Paige Beckers, one of us, and the Yukon Huskies. And now there's the WNBA draft. The old Nike campaign, basketball never stops, is adequate here, because women's basketball truly never does stop with the way it is scheduled. We are recording this on Tuesday, April 8th. There is a WNBA draft, like league-wide media availability. I think it's just the lottery teams, but some of the ESPN personalities on Thursday. I maybe recapped that before Mitchell just came on the show. That's another trick of the trade, folks. Podcasts aren't always recorded chronologically. We moving around in time here, breaking the space-time continuum. That's what we're doing. But so, yeah, the draft is coming up Monday night. The Lynx do own a decent amount of capital. Picks number 11, 15, 24, and 37. The 15th pick by way of last year's trade that they made with the Chicago Sky on the eve of the draft. So there very well could be some moves made before the draft and after we're talking that makes all of this content irrelevant. But you and your colleagues at WNsidr or Winsidr, the great tomato of women's basketball media, just held a mock draft last night. Yes. And I got some great play-by-play from you on how that mock draft went. And everyone knows that mock drafts are essentially law in all sports media content. And somehow you found a way to get Paige Beckers on the Lynx. So GM Mitchell.
We actually brought that up during that. I was like, you guys, you took my top option.
Right. So that's a joke. Sorry for lying right off the bat here on Lynx Happy Hour. Paige Beckers went number 1 overall to the Dallas Wings. But I'm curious, what were your overall thoughts? Did the chalk sort of hold And are there kind of any big surprises that you see happening on Monday night once the clock starts?
For when it comes to the Winsidr draft, first of all, it was fun to I love doing that every year. It's something that is kind of unique to Winsidr. A lot of people do mock drafts, they do big boards, and we do that at Winsidr, but we also do a GM mock draft, which is fun because you get each writer has its has their hands on what a team is going to do, and I will be the first to tell you that I've been doing it for probably, I don't even know, 3 years or something at Winsidr now. And I think I've gotten the pick wrong every single year. So I'm hoping this year's the year.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
You didn't get the Diamond Miller pick right in 2023?
Okay, maybe I did do that one.
Okay.
But I know for sure last year I got I picked Angel Reese. And I think that to my defense, I'm pretty sure that was before the trade happened.
The trade happened the day before last year.
Yes.
So unless you guys did the mock the day before.
I did have them picking her at 7, and she did go at 7. She just didn't go to Minnesota.
Okay, that's half right.
Yeah. but no, it's fun to do it every year. And honestly, the outline, and I don't want to spoil too much because I think it'll probably come out after this podcast comes out, but it'll come out before the draft, obviously. Exactly who we all picked. But it went for the most part as expected. There wasn't really any surprises. I'm just looking at the draft here as I'm talking, like it, there's a good mix of, obviously you have the star power or the stars at top. Page breaking news went number 1. Right. But I mean, you have a good mix of, stars or potential stars and international players as well. So it was cool to see what everybody else thought and kind of how they valued the different prospects as well. But overall, I mean, I do think when it comes to the Lynx and what they might do during the draft, I honestly do think it's going to be, best player available. I mean, the amount of guards that are in this first round, or that'll probably go in the first round, you could pick, between maybe 2, 3, 4, even 4 guards that are going to be there. So, I mean, they're going to get a solid player. And the thing is with this Lynx team is they don't need somebody to come in and contribute, heavily as they maybe have in, 2, 3, 4 years ago. They do need shooting. They need somebody that can come in and shoot, whether that's through the draft or elsewhere. So that is something that I hope they address if they do hold on to that pick at 11. But I do think that there are a few guards that are very intriguing. I do really like Te-Hina Paopao from South Carolina. I really like her. If she's there, I think they have to go with her. But it would also be fun to see somebody with a fire like Haley Van Lith. I think that would be fun. But like I said, there's a good mix of guards, and it's a guard heavy, especially when it comes to our GM mock draft that we did. It was a guard heavy first round, that's for sure.
Right. And if you've listened to interviews with Cheryl Reeve, you've no doubt heard her mention the importance of guard play. Mm-hmm. And with one of the greatest point guards ever, Lindsay Whalen, heard of her, on staff now. I think the availability will just kind of meet the need here if they stick with 11. The hope is that if they make a trade, they do it well after Thursday so that this conversation remains relevant for 36 more hours. And
watch, it'll happen in about 2 minutes after
we're and then that just means we have to hop back on, which is the world we live in.
Yeah.
But so I think there'll just be a bevy of guards, and I do think HVL would be fun. Mm-hmm. But I do think Paopao is a little bit more is a more consistent 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Obviously helped South Carolina win a national championship, got them to another one this year. I would be elated to see her in the Minnesota Lynx uniform. Georgia Amore is the player who went right before you picked in that draft. We'll go through the whole order in a second here, but I remember before she transferred to Kentucky last year, she was getting mocked to the Lynx in mock drafts, which of course, Cheryl's totally paying attention and being like, oh, good. Yeah. But I do think she's an intriguing player and a little bit undersized, but another just commanding point guard. And, you've got Court and T holding it down, but they can both move off the ball in certain situations. And like this will be the theme the whole season. Everyone's a free agent after this year, but the people you draft in this draft will be under team control for 3 seasons. So I don't know if you draft a point guard with the intention of them being your starting point guard in 2026, but in case you're not able to bring back Court or T or T, then then the cupboard's not empty going into next year, depending on what happens in free agency, which we know will be the wild, wild west.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I going back to what you were talking about with the prospects. The thing I like about Tina Pau is she can shoot. I mean, she had a little bit of a step back on her 3-point game, was this year, as far as volume and maybe it dropping off a little bit. But she is a two-way player. She can help defensively too. I mean, when I think of a typical Cheryl Reeve type player, it's a player that can shoot. She can step up offensively and she can play well defensively as well. Because everybody knows how Cheryl prides what the Lynx can do defensively and how that leads into offense. She's very very vocal and about that and says that quite often. But that's why I really do like her. I do think that, I do like Georgia Amore as well. I think she would be, solid. I'm a little concerned about her size, as you mentioned. She is a little small, but I mean, that's not a knock on her. There's nothing she can do about it. And she makes the most of what she can do with her abilities. So she's a very talented player. I mean, I don't know. I went back. I mean, we talked about this. I don't know how many times before we actually started this mock draft that like I was between like 4 players, and now all 4 of them went in the final 4 picks of our mock draft. But I could see them going multiple different directions here, which is a good thing. That's a good thing, that it's better to have that than to have no options or to, not really know what to do. So they can go, I think, true best player available and best option available at that spot.
And if it's between 2, they'll be back on the clock again pretty soon after. 4 picks later. So there is a chance that they can get both of them. Now, I don't know if I'm expecting 2 rookies to make this roster out of training camp. I don't even know if I'm expecting 1 rookie to make this roster out of training camp. But as it stands, they hold quite a bit of capital in this draft class. We'll see if they try and move it.
Well, you mentioned too with the other draft picks that they do have, they are, early on in that second round. Well, maybe they package, another, if they really do value a player that they want to even go back up maybe into the first round or move up in the second round. They have the picks to do so, because like you said, they're probably not going to, they're probably only hanging on to 1 rookie out of this class this year, as far as, just how it fits with the roster. So they have the potential to move. I know that I don't know this. I shouldn't say I know this, because people are going to take it as I'm reporting it, but I'm not reporting
breaking news from Mitchell Hansen incoming right now.
I feel like this year, maybe more than ever, they're going to be trading away at least a pick. And I think if they can get into next year's draft, I think that they're going to do everything they can. If you have to trade 3 picks, the last 3 picks out of your 4 picks to get into next year or get another pick in next year's draft, I think you do so. Just because next year's draft is going to be absolutely stacked. So I could see that definitely being a possibility. And you never know how, you mentioned you don't know how this next offseason is going to go. You have no idea how it's going to be madness this next offseason, and you're getting an additional team. Right. So it's just a lot. You're going to lose players, and it's just going to be a lot of moving pieces and moving parts in the coming year plus.
And you have what should be a pretty good pick swap next year. So it likely won't be 1. If any Chicago Sky fans are listening to this, please don't interpret this as hate. But I'm expecting that pick swap to be in the lottery range. And if you're able to flip any of these picks now for like another late first rounder next year or around that, then you have what could be a package to move up even further in the lottery to make a run for first, second, third, whatever. So they could do, that's a long way of saying they could do anything, and we have no idea what it's going to be.
Right. Yeah. Well, you were talking about a point guard too, if like, or let's say a guard of the future. I mean, who's going to be in next year's draft? Probably towards the top. Olivia Miles will be coming out of the draft next year. You have, I mean, I could go down the list of I don't know how many different players. The next year's draft is just going to be absolutely insane. I mean, you're going to have star power throughout that first round. If we think this year's draft is talented, next year's draft is going to be even better, and that's going to be fun to watch and fun to see play out. I'm already doing my mock drafts for 2026.
I was just going to ask you, are you doing your 2026 mocks? Yeah, grind, don't stop. I'm going to go through the order of your guys' mock draft very, very quickly. And then I'm just going to ask what sort of intrigues you about that. So, of course, Dallas Wings selected Minnesota legend Paige Beckers out of UConn. Seattle Storm at the next pick, Dominique Malunga out of France, who has risen up boards and is a very intriguing prospect. And then your colleague, Michael Waterloo, who covers the Mystics, having 3 of the next 4 picks. It's going to be a busy draft season for Michael. I hope he's got the coffee ready.
He got a lot of airtime in our recording that we did.
Yeah. This is, if you're a Mystics fan, I'm going to say you probably shouldn't expect to see your team in the WNBA finals this year. Anything can happen, of course. But yeah, this is a Monday night's your championship. It's the Mystics show. But with the 3rd pick, he went Sonia Citron from Notre Dame, followed by Kiki Iriafen from USC. Then the Golden State Valkyries go with Anissa Morrow from LSU. With the Mystics back on the board, that takes Cheyenne Sellers, guard out of Maryland, a player I am also high on. But so does, it seems, the mock draft community is high as well, because early in the cycle, you could see Sellers late first round, early second a lot. Now she sort of seems to be in the top 6 range.
Yep.
Then Connecticut Sun with back-to-back picks, going with Asya Sivka, the Slovenian player, and Juste Josite, the Lithuanian player. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Better than what I could have done.
I was asked, expecting you to be able to help, since you had a recording about this last night. Wow. But if everyone just tripped over it, I apologize. Send me the proper pronunciation if you know.
Oh, you nailed it, I think. We have Antonia, who is on our Winsidr staff. She nailed it. Both of the names, she absolutely nailed it. So I'll let her pronounce it rather than
okay. Well, I need to have Antonia on next episode. Then we get to that final 4. LA Sparks go Sarah Ashley Barker from Alabama, followed by Georgia Amore, Kentucky, to the Chicago Sky. You drafted Tahina Paopao to the Lynx, and then bookended the first round, Dallas Wings, Haley Van Lith out of TCU. What is the most, what do you think is storyline A out of that from a league-wide perspective?
I mean, looking at the Dallas Wings, if this plays out, looking at their picks, I mean, Paige Beckers and Haley Van Lith, that is fun. That is a fun rookie duo.
That's super fun.
And I do think that they probably go that route. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that's all gonna work out. If Arike is gonna, kind of move up or up to the 3, or even if they're all starting, I'm just assuming, I guess. But I don't. I mean, that's a fun group. I don't know. I mean, those 2 would be a lot of fun. I was. With number 11, I was kind of torn between I don't know. I really did. I went in hoping that Tina Paopao would be available at 11, just because I'm very high on her. My other options were Georgia Amore. Obviously, she went pick before. And then if both of them were gone, I was going to go Haley Van Lith at 11. I just think she's a Cheryl Reeve type player. I just think she fits that mold. She's very energetic, very nitty gritty. I think that's the type of player Cheryl loves, and you can't teach that heart and that energy. I mean, you look at Courtney Williams and what she can do with her energy and just kind of her spark. But those were the three that I kind of had my eye on. The other name I was actually kind of looking at was Sarah Ashley Barker. I know I mentioned that to you beforehand too, that I do like her. I think that it did surprise me a little bit that she went where she went in our mock draft. I didn't necessarily expect her at 9. Now I don't know if it would be really any different if she went at 10, but I kind of thought she'd be, in maybe the final 3 picks, maybe even the number 12 pick, but I do like that for the Sparks as well. But yeah, overall, I think the storyline would be Paige and Haley Van Lith going to Dallas, and then just Washington kind of loading up. That's a lot of star power that they would grab
Right.
in those top 5 picks or 6 picks.
Yeah. And people love rookies, right?
Yes.
So if you're a Mystics fan, this is fun.
Yeah.
You get Sonia, Kiki, and Cheyenne in the same draft hall. I kind of hope that the Mystics trade for more picks before Monday to see how many picks of a draft they can own. You gotta try and generate publicity any way you can.
Right, exactly. You talked about it too, like with the CBA next year, and with everything probably going to go up finally for players and their salaries. For Washington, that's kind of best case scenario for them locking up. They're hoping 3 key players in those first 6 spots that will be with the team for the future. And for the next 3 years, they're going to be on rookie contracts, and that's huge, especially if the salary cap jumps and the salaries in general jump up. That gives them an ability to turn this thing around fast if they do this correctly and if they hit on all these prospects. So that's intriguing. That's very, very intriguing, and I'm kind of curious to see what they'll end up doing.
For sure. Real quick, because we are running out of time, but players left over who did not hear their name in the Winsidr mock draft, but could in the real draft that actually matters. But South Carolina, Sanaya Fagan, who I have seen connected to the Lynx just in mock drafts. Maddie Westbeld from Notre Dame. I don't believe either of them have said they're going back today. We are at the time though where players will say that they're going back. JJ Quinterly, another outstanding guard from West Virginia. Sanaya Rivers, NC State. Michaela Timpson, Florida State. I've seen at least one mock draft each over this cycle that had one of those players to the Lynx. Anyone of that group stand out to you who they should maybe target at 15?
This is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I do think that it all depends on what they pick with 11. If they go point guard, I think they go maybe off-ball guard. If they do, and by point guard, I mean Georgia Amor. If they go more, Tina Pau, maybe they do grab a wing, or maybe they'll target a point guard. There's a lot of different ways that I think they could go. I do like JJ Quinterly. I think, what she has been able to do numbers wise, she can put up, her numbers are very impressive, 23 points per game. She did well with West Virginia this year, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's even, let's say, I know Sarah Ashley Barker went in 9 in this mock draft. Let's say she falls down into the early part of the second round. I would love to see her at 15. I think that'd be a great pick, but yeah, I don't know. There's a multitude of different ways that they could go, but it's one of those things. And the reason that I'm having a hard time with this too is there's not really a huge need on the Lynx team.
No.
In years past, they've needed, last year they needed a post, they needed a big, and they went Alyssa Pili. But and that's the other thing too, is she's still on the team. Like she's still here. That they don't need that right now, because they're molding her, and she's been working her butt off this offseason that people have been watching social media and everything between. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Where do you think they'll go?
I agree with you that the path to minutes is very narrow,
Right.
if it exists at all. So I think if there is a draft and stash opportunity, then that is something that they would look into.
Yeah.
I of all of those players, I think I like Simpson the most, but I think it's one of those where you're comfortable with whoever they
Right.
pick, and they're in a place of luxury where they feel good about the roster top to bottom already. So I think you do bring in the most talented and
Right.
hope that they can crack the top 12 and stick around. That's not going to be super likely, especially for the second round pick.
Right.
But we'll see. There's definitely intriguing names there. I have one more question for you. I mentioned you trying to trade for Paige in this draft. That I don't think Melissa was too keen to move off of that pick. But you mentioned Antonio, who covers the Sun. Did you try to trade her for Marina Mabrey when you got to pretend to be Cheryl Reeve for a night, which is a dream come true for us all, and make those draft night calls? Did you try to get Mabrey in this super serious but just for fun pretend draft that the Winsidr staff did?
I didn't in this draft or in this exercise, but I really do. And, I've thought about that too in the past I love that idea of maybe packaging even the first and second pick, give Connecticut a few more picks to add to a roster that's very thin right now and is with talent just because of the offseason they had. If would 11 and 15, would that do it? Probably not. You probably have to add a player in there, which could happen. I don't know. I mean, if you could do that, I do think that, oh God, that'd be hard for Connecticut to turn down. I mean, you would have 3 picks in the first round. Like, that's impressive. And almost 4 picks in the first round with how high that pick is in the second round. But I do think Mabrey's going to end up getting traded away from Connecticut. It's a tough situation, and it always works out in the player's favor in that way or in those situations. But I would absolutely love to see her in a Lynx uniform.
Yeah, you've got to make the call.
Yes.
Be like, here.
Absolutely.
But you mentioned pick 11, pick 15. The picks after that may not go a long ways, and you can't trade next year's first,
right?
Because of the swap that you get with Chicago. But you could trade their 2027 first.
Yeah.
And Connecticut, they're being honest with themselves, might think this is more than a 1-year rebuild situation.
Right.
So who knows? But yeah, I think you got to make that call, and there's certainly some ammo to get that done. And I don't know what other teams around the league are offering, teams that are in buy mode. So we'll see. But always a very exciting time of year. We don't even get a chance to breathe between the national championship and the draft. Yeah. So Sundays, just a week after they're cutting down the nets in Tampa Bay, Florida, Kathy's announcing the number 1 pick in New York. So Mitchell, thank you very much for joining. Appreciate the insight. Thanks for hiring me, I guess. Love to just add another part-time job, collecting them these days.
I'm glad that we, like I said, I'm glad we made this work out. I've obviously appreciated your work and followed your work for a while, and I'm excited to see what you can do, and I'm excited to see what we can do together. And like I said earlier, hopefully others are willing to join. We're definitely willing to chat and work together, and let's keep this thing rolling. So congratulations, and happy to have Lynx Happy Hour here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. It looks like we're pretty close to wrapping this at right at an hour, which was kind of the mark we were aiming for here at this first episode of Lynx Happy Hour. Mid-season form already. You got to love it. But we do need to talk about the news that the ownership of the Minnesota Lynx and Minnesota Timberwolves will be transferring soon from Glenn and Becky Taylor to Mark Lowry, Alex Rodriguez, and their associates. A long and drawn out and at times quite ugly process looks as though it is coming to an end. Arbitration ruled in favor of Lowry and Rodriguez, 2 votes to 1. Widely speculated that Glenn Taylor would appeal that decision. He has recently announced that he will not appeal, and the sale now goes to the NBA Board of Governors for a vote. So it's not done. It has taken on an air of inevitability. A lot of people relieved just for the process of this to be over. And so we can stop talking about it. No one ever wants to talk about ownership drama, ownership sales, or anything like that. And the prevailing emotion among Timberwolves fans is ding dong, the witch is dead. And I can't blame any Timberwolves fans who feel that way. I myself am a massive Timberwolves fan. It's how I fell in love with basketball. My dad took me to a Timberwolves game for the first time when I was 5, aging myself a bit here, but that was before Kevin Garnett was part of the franchise. And before the Minnesota Lynx even existed. I've been a fan of the Wolves since then. And since Mr. Taylor did save the team from relocating to New Orleans, again, that wasn't a 100% done deal. There was some issues in claims of how much money that group in New Orleans had versus what they actually had, which just, endlessly ironic. But it did ensure that the franchise would remain here in Minnesota. And recent success aside, and I'm of course recording this 2 days after the Timberwolves blew a 24-point lead in the fourth quarter. I say that with love. But it's been mostly a disaster. I would have to re-look this up because I don't know if the last couple of years have changed anything, but I think it was when Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers season they won the Super Bowl, they improved the organization's all-time winning percentage to a point where it was no longer the lowest winning percentage among the history of professional sports. And that dubious honor then lay with the Timberwolves. I'll have to look back at that. What my frustration here is, of course, the coverage is mentioning all of this through a Timberwolves lens. What wins, you can look at the wins and losses, you can look at the hires, you can look at the different drafts, firing one GM, Kevin McHale, replacing him with another GM, David Kahn. You don't need me to relive the pain of Timberwolves history. It's out there. We all know it. And Glenn was the presiding owner of all of those things. And he is currently, as I'm aware of now, not on speaking terms with the best player in franchise history. A fan base is never going to side with an owner, no matter what, in that situation. But so many of these pieces and reportage don't mention that the Timberwolves are not the only team that Glenn Taylor owns. He's also the owner of the Minnesota Lynx. And on that side, he's done a lot of great things. If you just look at it from a wins and losses standpoint, the Lynx might have the best winning percentage in all professional sports. Haven't looked that up either. A lot of this podcast will be me just saying things that I haven't looked up. I will look them up later, and then we can, continue the conversation about it. But I imagine the Minnesota Lynx are quite high on that list. a number I can confirm. The Lynx have played in a quarter of the WNBA finals that have ever existed. And they weren't even a team for the first handful of years. And I think what's interesting about this, as I've thought more and more about it, and again, I'm coming to this as a Wolves fan myself. There is a lot of need or want for fresh energy, just kind of a change. But there is a parallel universe where Glenn Taylor goes out of this a pretty beloved owner, not just owner of the Lynx, owner of the Timberwolves too, because he's not guilty of a couple of things that I think make nightmare owners for fans. He's never refused to spend money, poll ads. And he's never, ever used relocation as a threat, poll ads. I mentioned that other ownership family across the street because they've done both of those things, including slashing payroll recently when they had success for the first time in 20 years. Talking about the Twins, of course. You win a playoff series for the first time in 21 years, and then you don't do shit. You let Sonny Gray go. Yeah, why not bring back the best pitcher of the best Twins team of the past decade plus? Why do that? And I understand the Twins have 2 World Series to their names. Aging myself again, I wasn't alive for the first one. I was 3 years old for the second one. Within less than half of a decade after the 91 World Series, the Pohlads tried to sell the team to Don Beaver, who you may remember, great name, who was going to move the team to the Winston-Salem area. That was going to happen. That wasn't even like a Clay Bennett situation, who played coy and stupid about moving the Sonics to Oklahoma City. Denied that he was doing it. Maybe broke a few laws. Did it anyway. Don Beaver was vocal about this. The Twins were moving to North Carolina if that sale goes through. That sale doesn't go through. Well, if you can't move the team, maybe you can kill it. Only one owner has ever tried that. And it was the owner of the Minnesota Twins. They tried to contract the Twins. And Carl Pohlad would have gotten a hefty buyout for that. They voted on it and it passed. It was this close to happening. There are people who deny that contraction in Major League Baseball was ever going to actually happen. Why did the ownership vote on it then? It took the Players Association filing a grievance and a Minnesota Supreme Court justice holding the Twins accountable, saying you have to play out your lease in the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome. That's what ended contraction. It wasn't some kind of bluff. So when you're comparing Glenn Taylor to other owners here locally, take a look across the street from Target Center, because it could have been so much worse, even on the Timberwolves side of things. That doesn't mean you have to just say, oh, forget about it. Yeah, let's stick with the status quo. I'm just begging you to think about the whole picture. Because I don't think he's up there with the Wilfs in terms of ownership prowess when you consider everything that an owner does. The Wilfs have essentially refused to ever rebuild, which has been a negative at times. They spent money. They got the stadium deal done with public money. Of course, I'm not going to mention it like they didn't need some help from the taxpayers for that. But they kept the team from leaving. And they'd rather spend money than save it and be owners of a losing sports team. And at least with one of his teams, Glenn has been a part of the sustainability of a winning culture. He hired the greatest coach of all time and then stayed the hell out of the way. Had he made better hires on the Wolves side, or hires that worked out? No complaint about Glenn Taylor has ever been that he oversteps and gets too involved in basketball matters. That's never been a problem. And there are owners who do think they're the smartest people in the room and do want to play, armchair general manager, armchair head coach, Monday morning quarterback, whatever. And that's not him. He just hired David Kahn and took way too long to fire the guy. And there's a handful of other things there too. But he's a big reason why WNBA basketball is in Minnesota. And he treated the team like a priority with time, money, and energy before that was the norm. A lot of these people who invested in the WNBA early and invested in teams didn't really protect those investments. They didn't set their teams up for success. And Glenn did. And he does deserve credit for that. And he tried to do that on the Wolves side as well. And it didn't work out. It's worked out now. And maybe, he's no spring chicken anymore. I don't know the behind the scenes things that really made this ugly. And there's plenty of speculation as to why this process took the turns that it did. So I don't know anything. The people I speak to have not given me any kind of insider information. I don't have any hot takes. I think it's unfortunate that this didn't remain amicable. But you can't fault the guy for not investing in the product. And he did that on the Wolves side too. The practice facility is a marvel and really saved the Timberwolves and the Lynx from having what I will call an embarrassing practice facility. Yeah, you could say he could have gotten a facility done earlier, but the opportunities weren't always there. Some of you youngsters out there are too young to know that there was a Borders Books and Music, a movie theater, and a Hooters in what was then called Block E, also Escape Ultra Lounge, shout out Bella Notte, all of these places that exist in the past of downtown Minneapolis rather than the present. That property was not available for a long time for the Timberwolves and Lynx to have a beautiful team offices and practice facility across the street. He got that done eventually. And especially the WNBA, other teams weren't doing that. You're seeing all of this now. And at some point during training camp, I'll ask Cheryl Reeve about this because the state of the Lynx practice facility is going to soon be closer to the norm in the WNBA than a dramatic advantage as these other teams build their practice facilities. You've probably seen a lot of very cool cartoonish renderings of the current WNBA practice facility arms race on social media right now. It's thrilling. We'll see what these facilities look like and how long they actually take. The best, the coolest stadium in the world is always the one that's about to be built, is kind of what I've learned from following stadium and facility politics in professional sports over these years. Before that, the Timberwolves worked out in the downtown Lifetime that was called Northwest Athletic Club for a while. I know that for a couple of reasons. One, because I went to Flip Saunders youth basketball camp there. We practice on the same court the Timberwolves practice on. That was part of the pitch for the, not cheap summer basketball camp. But I remember being 9 and being on that court and be like, wait, this is where my favorite NBA team practices? Really? This is where this looks like the same gyms that we practice in. When I worked for the Timberwolves PR department for the 2014-15 season. At the deadline, the Timberwolves acquired guard Troy Daniels from the Houston Rockets. I think there's a few other that they shipped. That was the second time they traded Corey Brewer. I'm trying to remember all of the other. There's a flurry of transactions. More than 25 different players played for the Wolves that season. That's how well things went. So it was after Troy's first practice with the Wolves, and there is some media thing, and there's three of us on the day-to-day staff. There's my immediate superior and then my supervisor. And since there was all these moving parts that day, they're like, "Hey, Terry, can you walk Troy from here to here?" And we end up, because he was staying at the Lowe's, as new players often did, across the street from Target Center. And I walked him from practice back to the hotel where his belongings were, just as we navigated this first day of him as a Timberwolf and meeting with the media and things like that. And we ended up walking through the public part of the downtown Lifetime from where the Timberwolves practiced, which again was a court with a small weight room off of the side of it and a curtain around it. That curtain had holes in it. If you could be quick or sneaky, you could watch an entire Timberwolves practice from the track above it at that Lifetime. I saw Sam Mitchell yell at someone once when he was an assistant coach with the team. Sam Mitchell from the court saw someone watching and yelled at them to stop in 2014. And I'm just walking with Troy Daniels through here, and he's just like, "Really? This is where we practice?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "This is like a high school facility." Those days are gone. And that doesn't happen without Glenn Taylor. So just as we're navigating this, it's the ownership of the Lynx is going to change. And on the Wolves side, they are probably in for a pretty warm reception at all Wolves related things they do. And my worry is that they go into Lynx outings with sort of the same energy. They've got a lot to prove here. Laurie and Rodriguez and everyone involved does. And I don't know exactly what I would like to see from them as someone who is involved. I came to this position because I was a massive Lynx fan as well. Still am. Transparency. But looking through, this professional media lens, I don't necessarily know what I think makes a great owner. Glenn and Becky are often courtside at Target Center, and I think that's great. They can probably tell you the name of every single usher, security guard, concession worker in Target Center at any given time. They're very sincere people. And people will notice if A-Rod and Laurie aren't at Lynx games. I don't want this to sound hot takey, but I don't know that I need to see them. I don't want them to be invisible, but I don't think you necessarily need to be courtside at every game to show you're a good owner, to prove you're a good owner. The way Glenn and Becky behave is great. That's proper ownership behavior for sitting courtside at your team's games. When Howard, to mention the Seattle Supersonics again, Howard Schultz, the Starbucks guy, sat courtside every game, was so demonstrative and pouting when they didn't do well. And the players heard that. Gary Payton has talked publicly about that. Said he didn't care, but if you're Gary Payton and you're a Hall of Fame player and you have a near perfect game, and then the one time you turn the ball over, you hear your owner sitting 20 feet away from you complain about it, that's annoying. And I don't think Laurie or A-Rod will do things like that. They've been very celebratory at many big Wolves wins, and the fan base notices and appreciates that. And I don't think people shouldn't appreciate that. But also, Glenn was never absent for big, Timberwolves moments. And I just don't think you want your owner to become a distraction. I think Mark Cuban worked out fine in Dallas for a lot of years. That's the best case scenario of that kind of owner. You don't want someone who's going to put the spotlight on themselves, but I want them to show that they're committed to not treating the Lynx like an afterthought and ensuring the sustained success of this basketball team, one of the most successful sports teams in history. If they're not at a ton of games this summer, but in January, they make Nafisa Collier the highest paid player in the league when we have no idea what the new salary cap will be, to ensure that she spends her prime and hopefully her entire career in Minnesota, then I'll believe it. I'll totally buy it. So I think I would ask Lynx fans to be patient with this, but also the worry is a totally fine emotion to have because it's been going great. I don't know how it could have be going much better from an ownership front the entire history of this franchise. So that's my frustration with the way this has been covered so far. I don't think Glenn's accomplishments as a WNBA owner should be dismissed just because the NBA is where he's been less successful, and it's also, you know, the league that's pouring more money into media coverage, so there are more people talking about it. And if you're a Minnesota fan, and I beg my fellow Timberwolves fans, you know, I'm not inducting Glenn Taylor into the NBA owner Hall of Fame. There isn't one of those, thank God. But I do think it is a disservice to him that people think we've had the worst owner in sports. I think the worst owners in sports call Minnesota home, and I think they own the baseball team across the street. And that is such a wildly different tier when you actually look at everything on paper. So much lower, so much more frustrating. There isn't an argument out there that the poll ads are doing anything other than worrying about their own pockets. And you can make the argument that that's fine. It's their team. They bought it. They own it. It's very American sentiment. You own this thing. You can do what you want. I think a sports team owner owes a little bit to the community. A lot of it. I don't think that's ever been lost on Glenn and Becky Taylor. And A-Rod and Lori are not necessarily the answer to Timberwolves fans' prayers. So they're in a precarious situation. I really hope it goes well. At the end of the day, I do feel very optimistic that they will do right by both teams in this great organization. For whatever reason or whatever the motivation is, selfishly or not, I think they'll be good owners. That's not coming from I haven't been told anything they're going to do for the Lynx or not. We know they're going to try to build a new arena, and I hope the needs of the Lynx are treated as just as important as the needs of the Timberwolves. In a perfect world, that arena is on the same plot of land that the Target Center is on, with just major improvements, and the Timberwolves and the Lynx both continue to play there. That's what I ultimately hope for. But only time will tell. And I think Lynx fans are right to be skeptical about this. You cheered for the best product the sport has to offer for the last 15 years. That doesn't signal or cry, please change the owner of this. So yeah, that's our show for this first ever episode of Lynx Happy Hour. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Ran a little bit long. That's just me setting you up for the expectation that I'll run long occasionally. But we've got a lot of great episodes coming up. I've already reached out to some great guests for future episodes. Like the kids say, this is going to be a vibe. I don't think they say that anymore, actually. But you know, this will always be here every week during the season, with an emphasis on fun and covering everything that's going on with the Lynx as they try to avenge last year's finals loss. And another just, it feels like every year people say this is going to be an iconic season of the WNBA. And this year is no different. And it will be met with some pretty significant CBA changes and basically the entire league being a free agent after this. So please don't talk to me about 2026 WNBA free agency. I'm already stressed out about it. I already don't want to think about it. It's going to be too much. So we basically know who every player in the league and the team they play for. We especially will after the draft next week. Enjoy the draft. Be excellent to each other. Have a great rest of the offseason. We'll be back next Thursday, April 17th, reacting to whatever the Lynx do in the draft. Like, they have a lot of capital and they have no places to put it. So something's going to happen. Even if nothing happens, nothing can be something. So thank you for listening to this episode. I have been Terry Horstman. You have been excellent. And I will see you all at Target Center for a Lynx game sometime soon. Have a great week, everybody. Peace.